It was just a lot of fun for us, and normally we'd also be next to Sam here with us, Sam Betland, another commissioner along with Mad Mags. But this week we don't have him. He's on a work trip because he thinks work is more important than fantasy football. Priorities, Sam, am I right?
Yeah, I guess so. But we'll be getting him this Saturday, I think.
Cool.
Because he comes back Thursday, and then I know he said we'll try to put out another one before, maybe week 2 previews if we want to, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. We wish we would have had a preseason analysis before this because that's what we did for our baseball podcast too, and it's just kind of fun to see what we think, what we thought before the season started. But that's okay. We're only 2 days late on the season, or 4 days late, I guess, on the whole season. But anyway, we want to interrupt this normal broadcast for the breaking news that is today at about 7:53 on a Tuesday that Antonio Brown recently is named in a federal lawsuit by the Southern District of Florida, which, in case you weren't updated on the timeline, he was released by the Oakland Raiders and then signed by the Patriots for $20 million, and now his future's up in the air again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, accused of 3 separate incidents of sexual assault and rape. Oh God, this is great. Like, this actually makes me. I don't think rape makes me feel good, but if there ever was a way that I thought this would happen to Antonio Brown, I mean, is anyone really surprised? I'm not.
No, I mean, he's kind of a head case. I love the narrative that people think he legitimately has CTE.
Yeah.
And he's fucked, but you can't diagnose CTE until someone's dead. So maybe he'll just kill himself now.
Oh God. Maybe they'll just change the procedure and they'll just look at the way he's been acting and be like, oh yeah, he probably has it, and they'll be able to diagnose it pre-mortem.
And then it'll get him out of the lawsuit because in court they'll say it's not his fault, his brain's just fucked.
Yeah, he spent all those years not using an NFL-approved helmet. It's the NFL's fault.
It probably is. Yeah, this was broken by Adam Schefter, my boy, always bringing us the hot news, but that's not really relevant because we don't really care because Brown didn't even see any play this week. He had 0 points, 0 targets, 0 anything. He wasn't on the field. So let's get to talk about the Delt Champlain League results and just some overall thoughts on what happened this week. I mean, Cody and I, before the show, if you want to call it that, had a few thoughts on things and just some interesting thoughts. But I guess let's start off just talking about, Cody, do you have any thoughts about your players and your matchup or something that you noticed throughout your game between you and Trujillo?
As much as we had a gap, I ended up beating Trujillo by a little bit over 40 points. It actually never, except for the very beginning, it felt like I was winning by a lot. Then Trujillo got way up thanks to Austin Eckler, who absolutely went off. Austin Eckler looked really good. The touchdowns helped, but as we were kind of, touching on a little bit beforehand, I think it just doesn't matter who's the running back for the Chargers. I think they literally just give them carries and pass the ball to them, and then they get touchdowns and yards, and it's just like they're going to be the starter.
It seemed like from watching the game that they definitely prefer the kind of 60-40 split of Eckler over Jackson, mostly because Eckler can catch the ball really well. And I said this before as well. I think just from watching the game, a lot of it, Eckler just really positions himself well catching the ball and then knows immediately what to do afterwards. He's got great hands. He's fast, but he's also kind of a bit of a bruiser in some senses. I don't know. It to me just further bolsters the argument that team does not need Melvin Gordon.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, even looking at it from a talent perspective, I don't know. I've seen Justin Jackson run. I love Justin Jackson. I think he looks super talented, in my opinion. He looks like a more complete running back than Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon to me is just kind of like a bruiser that just gets a lot of carries.
I mean, he's really fast.
He is.
Don't talk shit about Melvin Gordon. He's better than both of them, I think, but he's not appreciably better than them to justify why they can't run a complete offense with both Eckler and Jackson.
I'd have to look at it. I actually don't know if I actually think on a talent level that Melvin Gordon is better. I suppose he is, but I think it's also the case of we've always been subjected to Melvin Gordon playing and never really seen Justin Jackson play for an entire game or games plural or a season to see how he would do in comparison. I mean, He had 6 rushes for 57 yards. I mean, that's pretty impressive in one game. I mean, if I remember right, I'll look this up while you talk about some other stuff. But I'm pretty sure Melvin Gordon's like yards per carry career-wise isn't very good.
Well, I mean, same with a guy like Fournette. But the thing is, people know that Fournette is good, right? And you watch him this year, even he did bulk up quite a bit this offseason and lose a lot of fat. So he looks a lot more lean. Apparently, he worked on his hands. I don't know why I'm talking about Fournette now, but the point being, like, a lot of these running backs, we know they're good. At least we think we know they're good. But I think the real question is, in a sport like football, it's just hard to actually analyze the running back position. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I agree that it is tough to analyze, but in the same team setting, I think it's easier to analyze. I mean, all factors are equal, essentially. To me, I mean, there could be the argument that, the scheme needs to change a little bit for whichever running back it is, but I don't know if I fully believe that. I don't know. I think if you're a talented running back, you're going to be successful a lot of times. Anyways, going back to the Melvin Gordon thing that I wanted to elaborate on, that you're probably right about, is he probably is fast, but his career, he only has a 4.0 yards per carry, yards per attempt. 3 of those years, he was under 4. His last year was really good. 2018, he had a very good yards per carry, so I'll give him credit there. But before that, I remember he had 3.5, 3.9, 3.9. Like, to me, what that tells me is that, like, anybody could do what he's doing.
I mean, I think anyone can do a lot of what other people can do in the running back position. I don't think there's very little difference between an average running back and a below average running back and above average running back. I think that someone like Saquon Barkley is completely different, which on that topic, from watching the Giants game, he just makes some unbelievable plays and actually creates more yards on the ground. But then once you're outside of like the top 3 running backs, I don't know. I guess we've had this conversation before. It's tough to say, who do you actually think are the best running backs with stripping away their fantasy value? Like, do you think David Johnson is actually one of the best running backs, or did he just get a lot of volume?
I think it's actually interesting you say. So my people would be for this. I actually Saquon Barkley for sure, Ezekiel Elliott for sure. To me, from watching them play, Christian McCaffrey for sure, Elvin Kamara, 100% Elvin Kamara. God, he looked. Watching him play Monday night, he looked so good. He looked he was so shifty and he was so slippery and broke so many tackles. I throw those guys into that category. David Johnson's tough. David Johnson 2 years ago looked like he was in that category. I still haven't seen it yet. Like, I didn't see it last year, and I haven't quite seen it this year. He looked fine, but I don't know if he actually looks like he'd be better than a replaceable guy, but I don't know if it's by a significant amount. I actually think from this week, especially looking at it, I think Dalvin Cook can be in this category. I mean, we've talked about it, and we've looked at past history, looking at like yards per carry for Dalvin Cook versus Latavius Murray / Jerick McKinnon in the past. And even watching him play this past Sunday, he looked so good. He just is so explosive.
He's very electric. There's no question.
Like, it's just a different type of like atmosphere with him. And I'm sure there's other ones, maybe Le'Veon Bell you could possibly throw in there too. I mean, he had a very good first week, but I'd have to see more of him.
It was actually pretty average. He had a touchdown, 6 receptions, 32 yards, and then 17 attempts for 60 yards on the ground.
That's actually true. So
30.5 yards per carry.
That might be a good example right there of the Steelers made him.
Yeah, right. I mean, look at how many running back situations lose their star running back, and then they are just fine. If not, I mean, sometimes better, it seems.
Yeah.
And I think the running back by committee approach, not only does it help with endurance of running backs so that they're fresher when they actually get carries, but it also just kind of helps with, you don't ever have to feel like you have to give this guy the bulk of the carries. Eckler and Jackson's kind of like, all right, we're going to give whoever we feel like giving it to. But when you sign a guy like Gordon or Elliott or Bell to this massive fucking contract, then you have to say, okay, well, maybe we should really work them into the game script. And then you're not as versatile as a team in the running game.
Yeah, well, those types of teams also, I mean, Cowboys excluded, but it seems like the Jets' whole system was, we're not going to build our offensive line. We're just going to buy a good running back, quote unquote, and think that that's going to fix our running game. And obviously the Jets look terrible. So, I think that kind of answers that question already.
Yeah, the Jets ranked 28th according to PFF in offensive line going into the season, which it's week 1, so not much has changed. So yeah, that's true, and I think we're just going to see more and more teams not investing in the running back position. But anyway, more from your guys' matchup. It looks like, obviously, CMC, you alluded to him earlier, but man, he does still look really good. I don't think CMC is talented. Wait, sorry. I don't think he's not talented. I've never said I don't think Christian McCaffrey is talented. I just think he's going to turn to dust.
Yeah, you know what? Good point. Didn't think about that. I think from watching him and everybody, he bulked up even more. He looked even faster, stronger, everything again. I mean, yeah, I don't agree with what you're saying about next year, but I'm not going to lie, as a fantasy owner, watching him get this much usage, I do get concerned. I'm not going to lie, I do get concerned.
They gave him like 5 carries when they were down in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like they're going to, I mean, from this year perspective, excellent. The game script, it looks like if they're up, they're down, they're sideways, they're going to run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, we'll see. I think 19 carries, hopefully. It's tough to say because from a dynasty perspective, I hope he doesn't get that much every game. My optimal game for Christian McCaffrey is like this. It's like 12 to 13 carries per game, and then getting about 8 or 9 targets, which still puts him in that elite status, in my opinion, with that usage. And because, I mean, he's a pretty efficient guy for catching the football because it's not hard to catch a pass that's 2 feet in front of you. Mm-hmm. And getting those is going to keep him elite, and that'll keep him like healthy because getting 12 carries per game isn't much. That's like nothing. And then 9 receptions don't matter because like you're getting tackled by cornerbacks and safeties and maybe even linebackers. Like they can matter.
You can just prepare yourself for a hit easier when you're seeing
it's
the ball.
A lot easier. Or some of those you don't even take it. You just go out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like you're not even getting hit. So there's so many systems. We'll see how he goes forward. I think he's going to be a great running back this year. I mean, he looked phenomenal.
He's definitely a freak, but who looked kind of old to me. And I don't know if you watched this game, but the Steelers in general look bad. But Ben Roethlisberger for Trujillo, it's kind of sad because this is his backup. But I don't know, one game, but just from watching the game, Roethlisberger kind of just looked old.
He did look really old. He looked really old, and it was like it made me like not extremely worried for Juju, but a little bit worried for Juju. When he just became the number 1 wide receiver there, he was targeted, heavily targeted. And if Big Ben can't get it to anybody else to take off that coverage, I'm not worried about Juju. I'm not saying I'm not concerned. Like, I mean, the Patriots also have a great defense.
Oh, yeah.
And Stephon Gilmore is the best cornerback in the league.
And it's well known that the Patriots defense focuses on their top guy. They love the shutdown number 1, make you go to 2, 3, 4.
Exactly.
So
I mean, they did that when they played against Adam Thielen last year. I remember they just shut him down, and we just like we still kept trying to throw the ball instead of run it with Dalvin Cook, and that ended up being why we lost. So yeah, they're super good at that. So I'm not reading too much into Juju, but it could be a little concerning.
Yeah, that's just the thought. I just from looking at Trey Hill's team, that's definitely one of the things that bounced out, as well as the Mark Ingram usage for the Baltimore Ravens on your end the side there. God, I mean that again. We could talk about how terrible the Dolphins are and just say, oh, it doesn't matter. Whoever touched the ball in that game was gonna do well. But Ingram had some rip-off plays, 14 carries for 107 yards, and he looks like the RB1, which I don't think anyone was truly surprised about. But really, I think the script to talk about here is that Justice Hill didn't see anything.
No, he only got a couple carries. Don't get me wrong, this is super encouraging for Mark Ingram, just to make sure that he's validated and doing well. A couple concerns I have with it, though. I mean, he only had 14 carries for a blowout game. You would kind of think he'd get more than that. Gus Edwards ended up having quite a few carries, which could kind of be a little unfortunate going forward. Also, 0 targets for Mark Ingram. Or if he did, or at least 0 receptions anyways. I guess I haven't looked at his like target number. But I mean, he was a receiving running back a little bit. Yeah, he had 0 targets in that first week.
None of the running backs had any targets, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised by that. Maybe that'll change.
I mean, Justice Hill didn't, and yep, doesn't look like Gus Edwards did either.
Really? Okay.
Well, so apparently
I
that's
guess
not
maybe
part
that
of the new Ravens
Yeah,
offense.
maybe that doesn't matter, but like, okay, even looking at this, for example, Mark Ingram only played in 32% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, Gus Edwards had 17 carries.
yeah.
Only
yeah.
56 yards for a 3.3 average.
Yeah,
but
I'm hoping that they don't. I'm hoping Gus Edwards gets less work and they start just actually going to Mark Ingram. And to be fair, it may have been such a blowout that they didn't want to run Mark Ingram into the dirt. That could be also another solution, but I'm a little less inept to believe that just due to the fact that they left Lamar Jackson in for how long until like the last couple series.
Yeah.
Like, so it seems like, I don't know. I hope, I just need him to be a solid to like low RB2, for me, at least with my team's talent. So, but if I can keep getting
What
games
talent?
like this, that's a good point. I know. I just have one duster, one guy who loves to wear a watch, and another one on Tampa Bay who decided not to play this last week.
We'll have to see if the Dolphins are just that bad or if the Ravens really are the new look offense that they talked about in the offseason really is that good. And if Lamar Jackson is really that good. But maybe we'll talk about that a bit later because Amari Cooper on Trujillo's side looks really good. And honestly, just the whole Cowboys passing game just looked awesome. Witten even caught a fucking touchdown. But, I mean, Gallup got a reasonable amount of targets. Cooper just looked completely healthy, even though he had some concerns before the game one. And then I'm blanking right now, but their other receiver.
Randall Cobb?
Cobb, their
Yeah.
new guy.
Yeah.
Cobb was getting a ton of targets. I think he had 2 touchdowns.
He had 1 touchdown.
Just 1?
Yeah, but he had I think 6 or 7 targets. It'll take me a second.
Regardless, the
Yeah,
offense.
five targets, 6. He had 4 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, so definitely part of the offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I don't know. Dak, to me, looks like he deserves a contract extension. I mean, he was completely on target most of the game.
Yep.
Didn't make any mistakes from it's the Giants. So I guess people might make some conclusions about that. But something to keep note of. I mean, Cooper has definitely had a great game.
I like Cooper. I like Cooper a lot. I mean, when he's the number 1 wide receiver in Dallas, it's been night and day. I mean, a lot of people talent-wise said that he was one of the better wide receivers they've seen. Like a lot of people, when they made their top 5 wide receiver list, just based on talent, put Cooper there. I don't know if I do, but that's definitely where plenty of people had him at, and it's very apparent to see that he's talented and that Dak's going to continue to go to him because he has every single game.
So in lieu of Antonio Brown being, apparently it's very possible he might not play now. Who knows how the NFL is going to handle this? They've handled every situation like this completely differently. Does Josh Gordon increase in value or decrease?
Well, he definitely increases. The only thing that kind of I've noticed about because he has a great rapport with Tom Brady, and so does Julian Edelman. So those two are going to be almost kind of split RB1s in a way, or wide receiver number 1s. He didn't get that many targets the first week. He only got 4 targets. I never know how to read into that though, because Tom Brady just spreads the ball around.
Oh my God! If you watch that game,
he literally just passed it to every random white guy you could ever name in the league.
That's racist.
Well, it's true. So, I mean, I actually saw so many white receivers catching balls that I was like, I didn't even recognize it. I thought we were at an Eden Prairie home game.
Nice hometown reference.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Let's call that the last thing we talk about for that game. I think there wasn't really much going on the bench. I guess TJ Hawkinson on Trujillo's bench. Ooh, he looks good.
He looked really
I
good.
love TJ.
I bet you do.
He
looked really good.
He carried us to that tie.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll talk about my matchup later. I don't want to be conceited. So let's talk about let's go in the order that Sleeper here likes to put these matchups in, and let's talk about Marcus Skoniewski's and Matt Maggs' matchup. Man, I don't think people were expecting Skoniewski to be a 200-point team, but he did it this week. Both quarterbacks, Wentz and Watson, about 30 points. nothing really to talk about here. It's nice to see Wentz perform, I guess, but Watson did what he was supposed to do. Slight injury concern at some point in the game, so he came out, but I think he actually came back into the game, if I remember correctly.
He did.
Yeah. And then, again, you look at the running backs, I guess. This is something that we haven't talked about yet, just the Titans, that Titans-Cleveland game. Derrick Henry got the volume, and he actually did perform with it. 19 carries, 84 yards, couple touchdowns, and actually was part of the receiving game only because he got that one reception for 75 yards.
I know. That's such a... I don't know. I don't know what to think about Derrick Henry yet. I think it hurts. I think Derrick Henry to me is maybe a low RB1, high RB2 is where I put him at.
That might even be generous.
That's what I mean. That might even be generous. But I think he has enough to get the volume and carries to be there. Yeah, I think high RB2. The more I keep thinking about it, just because he's not using the passing game. He isn't. I don't care that he got one,
2 targets, 1 reception.
I don't care that he got 1 reception for 75 yards and a touchdown. To me, that literally just, if you watch that play too, he went untouched. He didn't get touched.
I legitimately think he's slow.
Yeah. I mean, he's a bruiser. He's not meant to do that. So I think he had big games last year, and Tennessee does have a good offensive line.
Yeah, we talked about this before. According to PFF, they're the 4th best offensive line, which really improves the value of him.
Yeah, so it absolutely does. But it's just dependent on him getting carries and then just getting the usage. And I think he will get that because Deion Lewis isn't going to take away carries. He'll take away receptions, but he won't take away the carries. That's why I think high RB2 with the possibility of being a low RB1 seems reasonable to me.
I don't disagree. On the other side, Kamara had a Kamara game.
I love Kamara.
Yeah. Yep. Just the 13 carries, 7 receptions. Basically the exact kind of game you described that you want McCaffrey to have.
Yeah.
And still scored 24 points in our league. So, yeah, nothing to really talk about there. But Josh Jacobs, man. So he was talked about all offseason. Since he got drafted, they said, okay, the Raiders, they're going to give him the bell cow role. And boy, did they. 23 carries. He got 2 touchdowns. Wasn't part of their passing game almost at all. He had a 28-yard reception. That's it. But they gave him the carries, and he had about 4 yards per carry. So it's encouraging.
Yeah, he was a little under 4, but he looked okay. I know he looked like a really good goal line back, which is really good if you're seeing him, especially on Skonieski's team. Actually, the area that I think they need to start using him more in is in the passing game. That 1 reception was electric. Like, he outran a linebacker to get wide open, and then when he was in the open field, he made a lot of shifty moves. He looked really good there. As far as just his actual carries, when I watched him play, he looked okay. To me, he didn't stand out. Like I said, he was a good goal line back. He was an electric, actually, receiver. But for some reason on his carries, I don't know, maybe it's a bad offensive line or whatnot, but he just looked a little sluggish.
I don't know if the Raiders want him to be the new age running back. I think they kind of got him to be the traditional, like 10 years ago running back. It makes me question all of Gruden. Like I used to think Gruden might do well for that team, and I feel like every decision he's made has just been bad.
They got the win.
That's true. I don't disagree with that.
Against a good Denver defense.
It is good. Yeah. No, that's true.
I agree with you. I mean, he was the one who desperately wanted Antonio Brown, even though he had a track record of having bad instances, especially with the Steelers, and then was like, oh, we did not expect him to not behave and not be part of the team.
Right.
Well, look back at what he did with the Steelers. I don't know why teams, maybe besides the Patriots, but I don't know why teams think that they can take on these head cases and be able to control them. To me, that's just, like, stupid. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think... I've never seen a team besides the Patriots ever be able to do that.
Yeah, which is funny because now even they can't control Antonio Brown. But this is from the past.
Yeah.
These
right. This
I'm sure.
Yeah, but they, to a certain extent, are also misled in this case. You cannot tell me that...
Or are they?
Oh.
What if they know about it?
And they still were just like, we're going to sign him? Here's $9 million for your rape incident. Have fun.
Oh, boy.
Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if they know about it and they have a whole legal strategy to deal with it.
Maybe. That's a lot of investment just for a wide receiver. But the Patriots don't like being in the media. They don't like the news as far as, like, the main headlines.
I don't know if I agree.
Well, they're not a dramatic team.
They're
That's my
always in the
point.
headlines for doing
No.
shit that's illegal.
Sure.
Whether it's Spygate or getting Randy Moss.
This is a completely different instance. I guess. But to me, I just feel
I think they like to pretend that they don't like to be in the media. But then they go and do these things that are against the rules. Either they're heavily scrutinized, which I think is one argument to make, or they're always doing Spygate or Deflategate, or they're getting Randy Moss, or they're like, it seems like they don't want, because you just think that because Bill Belichick is kind of quiet.
Well, I also think in the sense that it seems like a huge risk to take somebody on who all of a sudden they think is going to have 3 accounts of sexual assault.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, let's take this guy on, and then let's give him a defense for his sexual assaults, and then like hopefully he can play with it. Because I mean, no matter how good their defense is, there's no way he's playing now week 2.
No way.
He's not playing week 2. He's not playing probably not even week 3. Honestly,
He might not have played week 2 anyway.
yeah, but I mean for sure not week 2 now. I mean he probably won't play until this gets resolved. He probably won't be allowed to play until this gets resolved to a certain extent. I mean maybe he'll get a couple games in there, but yeah, I think he probably just didn't tell them and probably just said, "Hey, I really want to play for you guys. I'm clean. Let me go to you guys."
It's possible he didn't know because he was just all of a sudden named in this lawsuit as well. Who
Could be.
knows?
Yeah.
We'll know more about the
Speculation.
details, I guess. But let's talk about Rashad Penny because Matt is starting him. He traded Leonard Fournette. And, however you feel about the trade, whatever. But the reality is he really is depending on Penny in that Seattle offense to be his RB2. And he had 1.0 points because he had 6 carries on 18 yards. And another thing we talked about kind of before we started this recording was how much they really did believe that they were going to use Chris Carson in the offseason and how week 1 absolutely reflected that.
Yeah. I mean, holy cow. I mean, he did get 6 carries. He just didn't do anything with them. But he wasn't using the passing game at all. That was kind of surprising to me because he's normally... he's still a good... For Matt's team, I guess I don't really... Maybe... I'm just trying to look at his team really quick. I guess he's not a rebuilding team. He is a competitive team this year.
LaShawn McCoy might legitimately be more valuable to him than Penny.
No, I actually think 100%. I actually think going forward, LaShawn McCoy probably will be his starter. I mean, he should be.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not going to know this week 1. I would have probably also started Penny week 1, just based on the splits that they had.
Well,
last year.
you don't. It's hard to actually believe what they were saying because they were saying, "Oh, we're giving Carson all the load." In the preseason, they gave him the whole load. You don't know whether to believe that or not because Penny's talented.
Yeah, there's so many teams that lie about that also.
Oh, of course, right. But they were being completely honest.
Yeah.
They love Carson. They gave him everything.
I know.
And I know you said he got 6 carries, but that's not for the Seattle offense. That's nothing.
No, I agree. It's nothing. But you would expect that to at least translate into that and a couple receptions to translate into more points than 1.8.
Yeah.
I would have expected 6 carries and 3 receptions out of him to I would expect 5 to 7 points.
But even then, that's not flex value.
I agree.
So it's I don't know. That's a problem point for Mags if he's trying to actually compete, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, but then again, his running backs aren't the strong suit of his team.
No.
Definitely those wide receivers.
Excellent wide receiver core.
But so in my opinion, that's where if Derrick Henry can be the high end RB2 and say LaShawn McCoy can be a mid tier wide RB2, then I think that'll be great for his team. I mean, Greg Olson's also kind of a weak spot, but
yeah, a guy he got for a 4th rounder or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine to have, but he's definitely not. I don't know. I don't think he's a top 10 tight end.
Yeah,
he might be. Maybe he is. I don't think he is though.
I mean, just kind of look at the difference between the game, though. I mean, it was a 30-point difference to me. It kind of was that the RB2. They had a 22-point differential between their RB2s. That almost makes up entirely for why there was a difference. Obviously, it doesn't entirely, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess
mean, he had way better wide receiver play.
Oh,
I guess
course.
Besides minus Stephon Diggs.
Michael Thomas with 24 points, 10 receptions, 120 yards. Keenan Allen was a huge part of the offense again. He had an awesome diving catch.
I know.
8 receptions, 123 yards. Yeah, almost identical games to Thomas. And then Diggs came in because he was injured. But that's not going to be a problem in the future.
No, that's not. I mean, Cousins only threw 10 times because all he had to do was run.
That was unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, to a certain extent, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just chalk it away to just an unfortunate game for Stephon Diggs. If anything, going forward, if I'm Matt, I'm not saying I'm happy I lost, but with Stephon Diggs not playing that much not playing that much, but not getting hit too many times and this and that, he should be fully healthy to go next week.
Yeah, he will be.
Like he should be just completely good to go next week.
Yeah, no, nothing to worry about with Diggs at all.
No.
Literally zero.
Nope.
Also, we're dumb because we forgot Mags actually drafted Devin Singletary, so he'll be his RB2 in my eyes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I suppose.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, speaking of LaShawn McCoy, Devin Singletary is good. It has way more value now because the Bills got rid of LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, he was a big, like, just from other leagues I've been in, he was a big target for me to pick up off the waiver wire. Singletary was.
Yeah.
And he had 4 carries for 70 yards and 5 receptions. But I think it was surprising how little snap count he had.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to imagine that'll increase over the season.
Yeah, I would think it would have to as well. And then it'll just go from there. I mean, we'll have to see how much production it is because for the same sense of good running backs are going to be good on good offensive lines, and it doesn't matter who they have. The Bills have a very bad offensive line, and we'll have to see if he's talented enough to get around that. I mean, obviously, 4 carries for 70 yards is very good. That's amazing, but it was against the Jets.
Yeah.
And it was against, and it's the first time anybody's ever seen him live in an NFL game. I mean, I'm not trying to say jump on like the sell train or anything, but I'm definitely just like, if I'm that, I'm very optimistic about it, but I'm not like sold.
Didn't Sam draft Singletary?
I thought he drafted Montgomery.
Oh, it was Montgomery. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, those two I always get confused.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Another thought to have is that Delaney Walker's back, and he also just had a monster game, which, yeah, that's, it's interesting enough. Monster game points wise, but really just 5 receptions, 55 yards, and he got carried by his 2 touchdowns, which to me, the bigger story of the game, along with A.J. Brown, was how good Marcus Mariota looked.
He looked really good. I actually think, based on how good Mariota looked and knowing Delaney Walker's past history, regardless of the fact that he only got 55 yards and 5 receptions, I'm extremely pumped for him because Delaney Walker always puts up really good stats.
Yeah, and
he's the most underrated tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's top 10 tight end.
It's like him and Jared Cook to me are both the most underrated tight ends every year.
Yeah, and people just don't like Mariota.
Yep.
And so they degrade his value. So, yeah, Walker looks completely healthy and just as good as he was in the past. So that's encouraging for Marcus's team here.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to make mention of, especially hearing it from a couple of analysts and just like watching the game myself, I'm like semi-worried about Tariq Cohen. Like, I think there's just a lot of reasons to be worried with him. I don't know. He gets receptions. He gets the targets still. We'll see if that changes. But, like, I just think the more and more they use Montgomery, the more and more they're going to see how talented he is.
Yeah.
And I think it could get to even, like, they have a 3-headed monster now with Mike Davis also.
Yeah. They're becoming a committee team.
Right.
Which, again, it's week 1, but I think some people thought it would be Montgomery getting the most snap count and then Tariq Cohen third down back. That is not how they played.
No.
With so far. So to me, that would bolster the argument for Cohen. But I guess you're saying that you don't believe that's going to happen. So, or that that's going to continue in that trend that they're not going to play Montgomery very much.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. But I mean, I think the Bears are going to just take it really slow with Montgomery. I think that's kind of what I got from this first week.
What's his name? Nagy was quoted saying, "Don't expect Montgomery to be a fantasy stud immediately." Like he actually.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So I guess that helps prove my point then. But I mean, like,
but what timeline does that mean? This year or next year?
But even if it ends up being halfway through the year, that's halfway through the year. I mean, like, okay, imagine half of an NFL season. That puts us in like week 8. That's 2/3 of our actual like fantasy season by the time that he actually starts becoming good and used, like an every down back. I think Montgomery's going to be a great back to have in the future. I think it's shown that he's going to be talented, and he'll have good games along the way. I'm just saying, for me, I just see a 3 running back by committee type system for like, say, the first half of the season.
Absolutely. No, I get it. Yeah. So Marcus pointed away the victory there. Let's talk about Jacob Bryan's team. So we learned this week that Matt's power rankings that he released on Facebook are actually just incredibly inaccurate because Jake O'Brien had the worst score this week with 114 points. I'm rounding, obviously. And Mike Reed's team also just had an abysmal week, but he pulled away the lucky-ass victory here. I mean, just looking at Obi's team, Bell had the carries and he got the touchdowns singular. Helped out a little bit by his 2-point conversion, but other than that, I know you were talking about it before. You're concerned with Gurley just because of his volume, not because of his rate of 14 carries, 97 yards looks awesome, but they gave Malcolm Brown a lot of carries.
I mean, he got 11 out of this deal, and yes, he got 97. He did get a little gypped on touchdowns. I think going forward, he'll get one, if not both of those touchdowns, which will propel his value, but he also only did see one target in the passing game. That's something. I just think going forward, it's clear to me that they're going to just do like a split between Gurley and between Brown. They've talked about how worried they are about his knees and running him into the dirt. And I know they're just not going to. They don't want to go to the playoffs again and not have him. I think that's kind of what they realized last year is that not having Todd Gurley probably immense. I mean, that may have been debatably why they lost the Super Bowl. I mean, it was a close game. I mean, if you get Gurley in there and he's able to make a couple more plays, they maybe win it.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people were in their preseason, a lot of experts in their preseason rankings were devaluing Gurley, I think, in a different way than what I now will start valuing Gurley as. They were evaluating him, okay, he has an injury risk, or they could just shut him down at some point. So we're going to rank him around 10th or something. Now we're starting to see maybe why we should rank him 10th, but for a different reason, just because they might just be giving Malcolm Brown a lot of carries too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of pointing it. I think that's actually what puts him towards the top or towards the lower end of like RB1 range to me is the fact that you still do have the injury risk. I mean, yeah, he had a good game, but he still carries that injury risk. And then you compile that with now the split carries to Malcolm Brown, and there's a huge amount of risk with him.
Yeah, the Rams are just trying to make sure he doesn't get injured.
Yeah, pretty much. And can you blame them?
No.
I don't.
No, I don't either.
So, I mean, but moving on from him really quick, like you also brought up Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell looked fine. He looked okay, I guess. I mean, he got a lot of targets.
Yeah,
few receptions.
9 targets in the receiving game. So
he's basically just gonna be the bell cow back.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Unintentional pun. Sorry, Sam. I did it again.
You did it again. You're a natural.
I know.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it.
We talked about the Tennessee game, but we didn't talk about anything about the Browns. I think a big story about the Browns is that Mayfield just didn't look great. He made some solid throws just from seeing some of the game, but he also just, for every solid throw he made, it seemed like he had a play where he looked like a rookie again almost. Like he threw 3 picks.
Yeah, he did. I mean, there was some. I was listening to the Fantasy Pros podcast, and they were talking about how there was this hit he took in the second quarter that when he kind of got up, he looked a little woozy almost. And there's some speculation that he may have been concussed the rest of the game and just never got it fully addressed. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but that maybe would help explain some of the inaccuracies that we were seeing. But either way, I think going forward, it's nothing to be concerned about.
I don't think so either, but it really just reinforces my belief that the Titans are good.
Yeah. They have a very good defense. Everybody always knew they had a good defense, by the way. So
good defense, top 5 on offensive line.
Yep.
And now you factor in if A.J. Brown is as good as he looked, and Mariota's as good as he looked, Walker looked amazing.
And Corey Davis is going to get usage.
Yeah.
Corey Davis is too talented not to get used.
It's just
not to get a single target either.
Yep.
Like, that's just... I mean, they have Denzel Ward on Corey Davis the entire time, so that helps explain a little bit why maybe he didn't get any options.
Yep.
So that's going to change. That's not going to stay that way.
No, that offense is just interesting to watch.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to that.
Yep.
As your resident Lions fan of the podcast, Kerryon Johnson looked fine, but he did not get the volume. He got 16 carries, but they were giving way too many goddamn carries to C.J. Anderson as a Lions fan here, and it was so triggering. They gave a lot of they recently acquired from Seattle McKissick, and he's good, but they also gave him a lot. Like he was in at the end of the game when they were down 2, and I just didn't get it. I mean, Kerryon Johnson showed last year he's like elite talent, really is. I don't get it.
I don't know why you guys aren't using him in your passing game more.
Yeah.
He's such a good pass receiver. Like, he's, again, like, he fits the new model perfectly of a running back.
Yeah.
And he is very talented. I love Kerryon Johnson's talent. I think he's very talented.
Yeah, me too. That game was just weird for his value. And we have Darrell Bevell now, who used to be the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. So, and we know that they actually like the receiving game for running backs as well. So I'm not worried about Johnson. It's just kind of weird how much they gave to Anderson is really what.
Well, it was just predictable carries.
Yeah.
That's kind of what kind of annoyed me watching the game a little bit, is that, like, he was always like your like down and close to getting your next set of downs back. Like, you needed like 2 or 3 yards. They went to CJ Anderson every single time. And I was like, why? I was like, why don't you like try something interesting with like Kerryon Johnson? Do some more screenplays or something. Like, get him involved. Like, he's a playmaker. I don't know. CJ Anderson's not a playmaker. CJ Anderson is, it's 1st and 5, 1st and goal on the 5. We need a touchdown. Give it to CJ Anderson. Oh, it's 3rd and 1. Give it to CJ. Like, he's like the Mike Tolbert essentially. Like, I don't know. I never have thought CJ Anderson's talented.
I mean, I think it's a reasonable acquisition for that team, but
It serves a purpose.
It does, but it just reminds, like you said, the Jordan Howard kind of thing. So Cooper Kupp on the Mike side of the matchup here, he got a lot of targets, and it looks like Goff was happy to have him back. Just a quick observation. Goff loved Kupp. If you look at Goff's stats, I'm a Goff owner, so I just happen to know this. He has like his stats with Kupp on the field and with Kupp off the field are like so much different. Like, he's close to being an MVP caliber quarterback with Kupp on the field. So clear that he loves targeting him and that he loves his slot receiver back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, it makes sense that that's going to happen, because when you have Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, and then you throw Cooper Kupp into that mix also, that's 3 above average wide receivers right there. And playing in the slot, he's normally being covered by maybe their 3rd best cornerback, if so, or a safety. He's going to get open. Or a linebacker sometimes if you're stupid like the Vikings. Like, they put a linebacker on him. What linebacker is going to keep up with Cooper Kupp? Like, they're not. It's interesting because watching Godwin, Kupp, and Golladay, they're all still at that level where they're these mid to high wide receiver 2s.
Yep.
But they're just not quite elite yet.
Yep.
Like, they still haven't taken the step. It's been one game, I know.
No,
So
but this
but
going
you know what
into
I
the
mean?
season, it was like this.
Yeah.
I mean, he should not need be named, who is very interested in Chris Godwin. That would be Sam. But you still have Mike Evans there.
Yep.
Golladay is the wide receiver 1 on that team, but he's, I don't know.
But there's plenty of other targets.
There's plenty of other targets with both on that team, Edelman and Jones, and I love TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I think you mean Amendola.
I do mean that. What did I say?
Edelman. I mean,
All
unless
those
you guys
whiteys,
want
I
another
always
wide receiver.
The Crackers are too hard to remember.
Yeah, just Patriots.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp, I think he's solid, but the problem is they just have so many targets in that offense, and they did not look as high flying as they did last year.
Yeah.
Well, the first 10 games of last year, because they actually started to decline. That's an interesting note, actually. It'd be interesting to see how the Rams perform offensively, because they really slowed down at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So,
I think they're I'm not sure what to think about it.
Me either.
I mean, it's all dependent on Goff. If Goff can stay, when they were flying really high, I mean, Goff looked amazing. And then, towards the end of the season, they just, started figuring out how to play defense against Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he wasn't that good.
You got to have trust in McVay, though.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be a playoff team. I mean, they're still going to be a playoff team.
Their defense is good enough still. And they still won that game against the Panthers.
Right, absolutely.
Yep. So,
absolutely.
James Conner on Obi's side, 10 carries for 21 yards, 4 receptions, 44 yards, 10 points.
Well, I feel like I kind of had my worries. I think I addressed it with somebody about having my worries with James Conner. Maybe I didn't, but I could have sworn I did, because I was just like, well, there's a lot of concerns about him. He never looked like an elite talent.
Well, he did. I mean, so the thing is, everyone says that he looks slightly worse than Bell. As far as I don't know, I forget this guy's name. There's this YouTuber that does super hardcore analysis.
Okay.
and he broke down like the first 12 games because it was the 12th game of the season.
Okay.
And they were talking about, and he was talking about like he had some stat that you can analyze, like basically yards created by you, not by the offensive line, basically. Sure. And he was slightly worse than Bell.
Oh, okay.
And so, whatever, however much you put into it, but it just, I think the real question is how good is the Steelers offense? Because they looked ass against the Patriots.
Yeah, they did. They looked terrible.
So I don't know. It's the funny thing is that we have always talked about how, we agree that Jake Obi should be number 1, quote unquote, in the power rankings, but he has by far the most risk on his team.
Oh, easily.
Even though he doesn't think so.
Well, you never think your team's risky,
No.
at least if you're the way you play. But I mean, Obi to me, the risk goes like this. If everything goes right, he's going to be a number 1 team. Mm-hmm. If everything goes wrong, he'll be just like maybe a number 5 seed in the playoffs. Like, he's going to make playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he still has I'm confident he has a good enough. The running backs are still good enough. There's not enough I saw in week 1 that, like, I was like, holy shit, you got to be worried now. We need to actually, like, put on the sirens, get concerned here. But, Connor will pick it back up. I mean, he got 10 points with only getting 21 yards rushing. Like, yeah. He's going to do better. He does need Big Ben to do better, though.
Yeah, we already talked about him. He just looked kind of old and bad. Mm-hmm. Interesting to note as well that on Obi's bench, he had some lights out performances from Terry McLaurin, recently drafted running back for the Redskins, and also from John Ross, who, holy crap, I watched the highlights of that game. My God, John Ross looked like, it was like, holy shit, out of nowhere. Maybe he is the wide receiver 1 that actually is talented on that team when Green's out, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, that normally went to Tyler Boyd in years past.
Yeah, but that game, they targeted him 12 times.
I know.
And he looked good.
Yeah.
Like, people,
I mean,
at one point, he was a bust.
Yeah, well, they always loved him because of his speed. I mean, he's extremely fast. I didn't look enough at the game. I believe you. I just know he's had games in the past where he's gone off.
Yeah,
and then
that's
he
true.
Just has
and AJ Green isn't there.
Yeah, there was. Well, yeah, but even when AJ Green wasn't there last year, there was some game I know where he went off, and then I was listening to like the Fantasy Pros podcast, and they were like, be a little bit like worried about John Ross, just because he that's what he does. He has these great games, and then he'll kind of fall off a little bit. So if he does it again next week, I'll definitely I would definitely move him up in a personal ranking. But for now, I just have him at the same spot.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah, and McLaurin, let's just keep tabs on him, I guess. He looked good, though.
That's an interesting one to have, though. I mean, even though, because Peterson might not for sure play next week. Mm-hmm. I've heard that. I mean, we'll see. I even think they were wondering, even when Geis was injured, why Peterson wasn't playing more. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. There's some stuff to worry about with Peterson. I'm not exactly sure what's gonna come of him, but I think that's a great person for Obi to have, and that just gives him another running back that he didn't need.
You're basically just arguing that if they don't have a running game, they're going to be passing
for Washington.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying they'll end up if AP. There was some rumor that AP might even ask to be released.
Oh,
but I think this was before the Geis injury. But I was saying if there were any issues with Adrian Peterson that. Who'd you say you were referring to?
McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver.
Oh, he's a wide receiver?
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's probably why. Then I'd never heard of Terry McLaurin. Before this.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about Sam and I's game.
Sure.
Me and Sam's game. Both of our quarterbacks went off. I don't want to make anyone listen to me. I think Lamar Jackson is excellent. He looked like a passer. He ran 3 times and he tore up the Dolphins defense, which is admittedly ass, but he still looked great. We can move on. Mahomes.
I'll keep my mouth shut just for right now.
Yeah. Mahomes, he looked like Mahomes. Nothing to talk about there. Like you mentioned before, we don't have to talk more about Dalvin Cook. He's good. He's electric. So good. And they give him 21 carries this game. So they want to keep going with it. So you love Dalvin. Elliott was on a lower workload because of the contract signing, everything like that, which everyone expected.
One thing I want to note really quick. Was for on that Vikings side was how confusing it was to see Alexander Madison running the ball because he looked the exact same as Dalvin Cook. They had the long hair, everything. And he also, like, put up, I don't know, at least from what I could see, he seemed to be really good. I mean, he got 9 rushes that game for 49 yards, which is pretty good. I mean, that's almost 5 yards per carry. He actually looked good. So we'll have to see. Maybe Atlanta just has a really bad run defense.
That's what it looked like.
I mean, it did look like that, but they're definitely were just like they were sometimes were very confusing.
Yeah. Chris Carson, we already talked about him. They want to give him the ball, and they did. He got 23 points. Hopkins had a monster Monday Night Football game, and you just keep doing what he's going to be doing. And Davis, let's come back around to that. He actually had 0 receptions and 3 targets. So, like you said, you said earlier, you think maybe eventually he'll get more targets. He's too talented not to. Game by game, there's just randomness in fantasy football.
Yeah, that just kind of happens. Also, I want to point to 2 plays. So Sam ended up getting highest points this week, and I don't know if you watched that Monday night game, how he took it away from me.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, so within like the last 2 minutes, I think I was up by like 10 points or something like that. Somewhere around there. I was up by 10 points. DeAndre Hopkins caught a 39-yard pass from goddamn Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
So that gives Sam like 5 points there. I think I was up by 8 or something like that. Anyways, after this reception, all of a sudden Sam is down to me. He was down to me, I remember, by .08. He was down by .08.
Yep.
And so then they scored the touchdown right away to they went to Kenny Stills. It was Kenny Stills. And there's like 30 seconds left. I'm like, okay, Breeze, just don't actually go far enough, because Sam also had the New Orleans kicker, and he had nobody after in the second games, and neither did I. So when Drew Brees got a couple completions, I was like, okay, that gives me a little breathing room. Now I just need them to get stopped. And then I saw that he was going to attempt a 58-yard field goal, and I was like, okay, so if he misses this, I get highest points this week. That hitting his career long, gave Sam the win for highest points this week. It literally came down to the last play of the week.
Yeah, fuck Sam. He doesn't deserve it. So
no, he doesn't. Who scores 210 points and thinks they deserve highest points?
Well, in the past we've seen a lot.
I
higher,
know. I think we both deserved it. I mean, to have 3 people in the 200s was pretty. I think it's pretty rare.
Yeah. Just to Stanton Sam's team here, Alshon Jeffrey and just the whole Eagles offense look great, but especially Deshaun Jackson as well. I don't know who owns him, but man, did Jackson get a lot of targets, and he just looked. I also saw that he, for the highest sprint speeds of all of week 1, he was like 3rd highest sprint speed. So I'm talking about Deshaun Jackson. He's still fast. Yeah. I'm just saying, that's just unbelievable. I think he's like 31 now or something.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, he's on Ben Fowler's team.
Okay.
He was just wide open on all those too. And maybe that's kind of what the Eagles need, and what Carson Wentz needs is that just like long guy that you just throw to. You know, they have Alshon Jeffries, who's a great possession wide receiver. And maybe this just helps complement that. I mean, essentially gives you the small range with Darren Sproles, mid range with Alshon Jeffrey, and long range with Deshaun Jackson. So maybe he's the missing piece. I actually think, especially coming off only a couple years ago where he was a top wide receiver, and just being injured last year, unfortunately, I think kind of hindered his performance. I think in strong passing teams, he could be a strong wide receiver play going forward.
I mean, most people agree that he's at least wide receiver 3. So
yeah,
it is worth noting that his score is inflated by a rushing touchdown, which is not going to happen every week.
No,
I think it's more reasonable that his real score this week was like 14 points, not the inflated 22.
Yeah.
Also, Travis Kelce only had 13 points, but Pat Mahomes had made a no-look miss on a wide-open Kelce, which, god damn it, Pat loves those no-look throws, but he was literally wide open in the end zone.
Also, sorry, I want to stop you really quick.
Sure.
When you talked about Deshaun Jackson.
Yep.
I think you said he only had 22 points.
No, that was Jeffrey I was talking about.
Oh, Jeffrey. Okay.
Yeah, no,
I was
Jackson went off.
I know. I was like, Deshaun Jackson, dude, he had like 40 points. But yeah, you're right about the rushing touchdown, that 2-yard rush. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
So anyway,
keep going.
No, you're good.
Just go.
Yeah. I'm hurrying. Tyreek Hill is out for 6 to 7 weeks, allegedly. But it's a good thing that I have his handcuff and Sammy
Watkins. The wide receiver handcuffs, dude. They're real.
It is. Well, for an offense like that, it is. In a lot of other offenses, it isn't. But also, Sammy Watkins is super talented, too. So I honestly wasn't even upset when I saw he'll go out because I was like, oh, that's great. And then Watkins had like 52 points, so on my bench. But
Yep.
God, we should switch to best ball next year. Best ball is just better.
See, that's exactly what I told Sam you'd say. I said as soon as you're done with this week, especially next week, if all of a sudden your best player's on your bench again, you're just going to be like, let's just go to best ball.
Don't get me started on it because I actually have a lot of argument for it, but we're never going to do it. It doesn't matter.
No, we're not. Never, ever.
I'm worried about O.J. Howard because Jameis Winston looked like the worst player in the league. So
why is he still starting on that team?
Because this is the same thing. Both Mariota and Winston are in the same thing. They're giving them the one last chance, basically. And
yeah, but I feel like Winston's been on his one last chance for the last like 3 years.
He was so good in college.
Yeah, but who cares?
I know.
I mean, like, if you don't figure it out within 40 years,
especially with how many good weapons they have on that team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I actually think looking at the way they played yesterday, Bruce Arians might not be the right coach for him.
Well, I don't know. No one really doubts Bruce Arians. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It is still week 1. But yeah, I mean, what if it's just Winston and it's not Arians' fault? What if there is no good coach for him?
I think literally, no, but this is what I mean for Winston. The best coach for Winston, I think, was last year, which was, hey, Winston, just throw all the passes you want to throw.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So because he puts up big stats and then people pay attention to him and they're just like, oh, yeah, he's a good quarterback. Look at him. Look at all the stats he put up. Da-da-da-da. It's like, you watch him, he's not really a good quarterback. I don't think he's a good quarterback. He throws way too many picks. He just has so many pass attempts. And then, if I could throw a ball 50 times, I'm sure I could pass for over 200 yards.
Yeah, I think he threw 2 pick sixes at some point.
He's old enough not to be making these mistakes.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah,
that's why I'm concerned for Howard.
I suppose makes sense.
But on the same 49ers note, Ronald Jones looked really good. He didn't have many points, but he looked really good. And I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, he's a waiver wire pickup over Barber." Or they might be giving him more carries over Barber just based on his performance this week. So
they should.
Yeah,
that should have changed a long time ago as well.
Yeah,
that's like something like, I don't know. I don't. It's so unfortunate to me for Tampa Bay's offense, and I still think they'll be fine. This is like kind of why I'm still fine with Mike Evans and all these other guys. Is Winston's going to give his passing attempts, but I actually think like they just start not their best players.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
whatever that. At least for running back, that is.
Yeah. I guess the only other note really from both of us, Austin Hooper had a good game. He caught all 9 of his targets for 77 yards. Even though they lost miserably to Minnesota. I mean, still worth noting. I know Sam is really high on Hooper, and there's no reason if he's going to get 9 targets like that, he should be high on him.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot of those kind of came in like one drive, garbage time type stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't think he'll really keep that up. Do you want to talk about your little Marquise Brown, though? Little Hollywood Brown?
It's the same thing as me talking about Lamar Jackson. It's like, do I think it's going to happen? Continue that way? No. Am I super happy and encouraged because I have a bet with you guys that he would be he's right now, he's the number 1 rookie wide receiver, and I said he'd be top 5. So
is that what was it the rookie bet?
Yeah.
What did we put him at? Was it you said it'd be
top 5? Yeah.
And we said he'd be
he'd be 6th, basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's not looking great for us.
It's a good
I think
start
he might
for
have
me.
scored enough points this game to maybe be top 5.
I mean, AJ Brown still had a good game.
AJ Brown, DK Metcalf did
Terry
fine.
McLaurin.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rookie wide receivers that had a good game.
There's fine.
I just think Brown had the best though.
Yeah.
But
speaking of rookie wide receivers, by the way, Paris Campbell did like nothing, which makes sense.
I don't like Paris Campbell anymore. I think luck was what made Paris Campbell.
You think so?
Yep.
I still think he's a talented wide receiver.
But there's so many other talented wide receivers from that class. That was like the biggest talented wide receiver class, and the only reason.
I'm just talking about going forward, not even this year, but in future years.
Yeah.
Because I feel like eventually he'll have to get traded to a good team, or the Colts. Actually, what I think might happen is the Colts get a good quarterback, and then now he just has that.
But how long do you have to wait for that?
I think
there's other better options from that draft class in my eyes. I guess I said before when we talked about this, I said Paris Campbell was drafted about where he should be, like 7th or 8th wide receiver. I think him losing luck makes him a mid-second round draft pick just from losing luck. Drops almost a full round.
Yeah. I definitely think it for this year. I guess I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it. Just because I think they literally probably are going to draft a quarterback next year, and then I think he'll be fine as soon as they get the new quarterback. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
Then he'll be a rookie, and then you have to wait for the rookie pains.
With some rookies, yeah, that's true.
And I know a lot of people really do like Jacoby Brissett, but the whole point is I don't think Jacoby Brissett is Andrew Luck.
No, he's not. Well,
so
not a lot of quarterbacks for Andrew
I know.
Luck.
That's just my point. I don't know.
That's fair.
So let's talk about Laramie. I think this is our last matchup. Laramie and Eric Barber. Is that right? Have we really been talking for that long?
I don't think we talked about
we
Adam
didn't talk
and
about
Ben
Adam
Fowle.
and Ben's. Yep. Okay, let's talk about Laramie and Eric Barber's teams. Tom Brady, oh man, he doesn't age.
God, that offense is so much fun to watch,
Yeah,
dude.
they are.
It's actually like insanely fun. Tom Brady is so good.
What's the Damian Harris watch here? What did he do?
Nothing.
Week 1.
He was injured.
Oh, he was?
Yeah,
So
he was injured.
really
He didn't
nothing.
play. I watched him actually in the preseason a little bit too. He doesn't look very good.
Really?
I'm a little bit down on that for my team because I obviously own him. But
It's just weird because obviously most people said Jacobs was the better running back, but Jacobs got way fewer carries than Harris did in Alabama. So it's just kind of interesting.
it is. I don't know exactly how it plays. I guess looking at him, he's probably not as bad. But I can just tell you from watching in the preseason, just strictly watching their moves, watching Justice Hill, watching Darwin Thompson, and Damian Harris. Damian Harris to me looked the worst.
Yeah, and maybe he was still injured in the preseason.
He
If
could have
didn't
been.
play week 1.
That might have been too. He looks slow. He just looks sluggish. So hopefully that's not an issue going forward. And I mean, I would love to see him get carries, but I don't think it even matters. They have way too many running backs already. I mean, James White's a great receiving back. Rex Burkhead got plenty of carries and looked
Sony
good.
Michel
Michel's still the lead back.
Yeah, even though he had 15 carries for 14 yards, which bridges into the next conversation that was the story of this week's matchup between Laramie and Eric, was that both of their RB1s had 5 points combined, 5.1 points combined.
Yep.
Joe Mixon had 6 carries. What, is it because he got injured?
Yeah, he got injured.
Okay.
So he's questionable now for next week. We'll see if he comes
I
back.
remember that now.
Yeah.
And Giovanni Bernard got a lot of the work, and he looked fine. I don't know.
They just signed him, I think, to an extension a couple weeks ago too. I mean, this is kind of what Bernard does every single season. Is Mixon gets injured, he comes in. Mixon actually, to me, is starting to go under that category of injury prone. Like he's been now injured the last 2 seasons, like not full seasons, but like missed considerable game times the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
like, and
maybe
I don't
he
know
is.
why people don't discuss it. I think it's just because I don't know why, but it's
Because no one wants to believe it.
yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. And I don't know. If Michelle keeps having 15 carry, 14-yard games, they're going to play White more. And they're going to have to give Burkhead more, even though Burkhead's always just been a receiver. He's always been the Cohen type, the Cohen Sproles type. But yeah, speaking of the complete opposite end of the spectrum of RB1s doing terribly, Marlon Mack had 30 points. And I also watched a lot of that game, or a bit of that game. Because that was, to me, it was the story of Eckler and Mack just going off on both sides of the ball. And man, Mack... He got all the carries basically for that team, and he looked super good, man.
Yeah, that's good to see. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, were very concerned about him after Andrew Luck went away because I was like, what's going to take the pressure off of him?
Exactly.
But also, I want to retcon a little bit what I said about Joe Mixon. Looking up at his stats right now, it looks like he's played 14 out of the last 16 games. But I feel like that's been worse. I don't know why. I felt like he missed a lot more games last year, but maybe he didn't.
We're flawed. We don't have all the perfect memory of everything.
That's true.
I don't even know, so I just agreed with you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm sure Sam would have. If Sam was here, this is why we need Sam. Sam would have balanced me out. That man has a photogenic memory.
If anyone actually listens to this podcast, please note right now, even though we're like an hour into the podcast, it's too late to note this. We'll probably be better with Sam.
Yeah, Sam is our essentially our fast checks for the stuff that we know. Like we have very strong opinions, and we can argue opinions against him.
And he's just a dissenting opinion, which is always interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, he normally has the wrong opinion, but like that's okay.
Yeah, that's why he scores 220 points in week 1.
Yeah, well,
by having the wrong opinion.
I'm sure I'll still miss playoffs.
Yeah, Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard had 10 points. He's like their only receiver on that team, other than Evan Ingram. Which, speaking of that, he didn't come up because I don't think. Oh no, he was started.
Yeah,
he had 30 points.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, man, Ingram. People are already starting to say, okay, maybe he's part of the new tier because of just how good he looked, and if he's going to keep getting these. He had 14 targets, man.
Yeah.
Is he part of the tier with Ertz and Kittle and?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
And Kelsey.
No, not yet. He's high in the second tier, but I don't know. I don't think he's gonna get 14 targets going for. But like Evan Ingram, okay, this I do know. Evan Ingram has always been a guy of huge games and then like little games.
He's also young though, so it's not. He's like a guy that always does this.
Yeah, but you also have to rely on Eli Manning being able to effectively give him.
And if it's not Eli Manning, you have to go with Daniel Jones.
Actually, no. Now that you bring up Daniel Jones, he probably will be a top. He probably will be a top end tight end. No,
I hate Daniel Jones.
Tom does. Tom absolutely
Daniel
cannot
Jones so
stand
much.
him.
But yeah,
I don't know. Sterling Shepard's a big bleh, like I thought he would be going into the season. I didn't care that he was the Giants' #1 wide receiver. To me, that just doesn't mean anything.
it's still week 1. He could still see a lot. I mean, still 7 targets is decent, and I don't know. I didn't watch enough of the game to know if he looked good.
I mean, he'd be a fine, like say, wide receiver 3 to play.
Sure.
If you have to do it, but.
Another guy that was hyped on the tight end side of the ball was Mark Andrews, and he really lived up to the hype. Again, it's the Dolphins. This game is so...
Sure.
This game was just fucking flossing Swiss cheese.
He did look good, though. I mean, he looked,
And he caught all 8 of his targets. Anytime you see that, you have to assume something went well.
Yeah.
He didn't drop anything.
Nope. No, he did look good. And I mean, he is approaching, I mean, like, what was last year's rookie year, I think?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Either that year or the year before that. Either way,
like
that's
that.
a classic thing for tight ends is they suck their first year and then they start doing better and better, the more experience that they get. Just because tight end is one of the most, the toughest positions to learn in the NFL because not only do you need to know receiving routes, you got to know your blocking assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and we already talked about how this is completely different than what you were just saying, but how David Montgomery just saw no field time, and so it only resulted in 5.5 points. But yeah, and he's not a great flex if that's the case. I mean, looking at Laramie's team, who does he have for a flex? If it's not Montgomery, I guess Tyrell Williams, that seems reasonable. With Antonio Brown out, that actually is reasonable after he scored 25.5 points this week.
Yeah, if he plays, Adrian Peterson might be okay.
Adam Humphries could be fine.
I don't like Humphries at all.
Yeah, Miles Sanders also could be really good as well.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good options, but he doesn't have a solid flex like a lot of the really competitive teams in the league.
He's kind of just has to wait for one of these guys to just kind of take over and just make it apparent. I mean, to this point, it has been Terrell Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Sanders maybe, but
yeah.
Miles
and he
Sanders
looks good.
Yeah, which is weird because he obviously didn't put up good stats.
No, but with his carries, he looked good from watching part of the game.
That's what I heard from multiple people, so I definitely believe it.
Yeah.
It's just funny. It just goes to show you that stats aren't everything.
That is always very true. Yeah. And then on Eric, on Barber's side of the team, or side of the spectrum here, at first I thought that his kicker was DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's Dustin Hopkins. But, yeah, I don't know. Both of these teams, Philip Dorsett looked good.
Yeah, Philip Dorsett looked good, but that's just the Patriots rotating wide receiver tandem.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that could literally be anybody, and so to try to predict that is almost essentially flawed to me. If I'm him, I would be interested in knowing why he picked Marvin Jones over Emmanuel Sanders, but I suppose it kind of makes sense. I guess those are push options.
Yeah.
I still like Emmanuel Sanders. I think people really underrate him right now. I mean, I know Courtland Sutton looked amazing. I mean, he looked amazing to me in that Monday night game against the Raiders. Deshaun Hamilton did pretty much He looked that. And then, I don't know, Emmanuel Sanders looked fine. That was kind of my takeaways. I actually like the way Font looked. Even though he didn't get a lot of stats, he looked really talented. Not Hawkinson talented, but he looked talented.
Yeah, that's right. Not Hawkinson talented. Yeah. Yeah, there's no really truly standout target on that team.
Yeah, it's just kind of but they have a lot of above average players. As far as wide receivers and the tight end,
right, in
my opinion.
Agreed.
I think both Sutton and Sanders are above average. I think Hamilton is the epitome of average. I mean, he would have done better had he not dropped a wide open touchdown pass. So that part of it sucked.
Yeah. Speaking of that, just since you said that, Kittle also could have had a way bigger week this week, but there was 2 touchdowns called back.
Yeah.
What? I think it was actually 2 called back from penalties. So You always got to take that in consideration.
I'm not worried about Kittle.
No.
That guy's a freak.
No, yeah,
dude, he's
Kittle's,
so good.
Kittle's good, and Garoppolo looked average. I don't know. I want to see more.
He didn't
from
look as
Garoppolo.
bad as what I thought he was going to look.
No,
For how
no.
bad he was looking in the preseason.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't nearly look that bad, so that was good.
Yeah. Let's wrap up with talking about Ben Fowler's and Adam E's teams.
Sure.
Fowler won by a lot. He won by a lot, and Adam's team is definitely a future-based team here, so no one's surprised. He has a ton of future draft picks. He doesn't really have a this-year team. But let's talk about Fowler's Dak Prescott. I already talked about him earlier, I think, but man, I thought he looked good.
Yeah, Dak looked really good. Played against the Giants team. He always seems to do a little bit better against the Giants. One area of concern for me on Fowler's team, and this is a guy I've always been down on the entire year, especially going into this, Damien Williams, dude.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, also, why was he only given 11 carries?
Yeah, that's pretty
He
weird.
still got 120 yards. He's so good.
Yeah, he is.
God. But,
Yeah.
no, getting back, dude, Damien Williams only had 26 yards on 13 carries.
Yep. And with the pressure from Darwin Thompson in that backfield, too, yeah, I think that's a reason for concern. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's quite clear to me that Shady McCoy should be the lead running back.
Yeah.
To me, Damien Williams has always been a backup, but then got put on a very talented Kansas City Chiefs team, and then just got thrown into the position due to injury. And then people were just like, oh, we kind of liked what we saw. We think we're going to keep him in there. But it's like clear that both LaShawn McCoy and Darwin Thompson are the types of running backs that Andy Reid has always loved and preferred.
I've had a change of heart with LaShawn McCoy because I thought he looked really bad in Buffalo for a
Yeah.
couple seasons, or just last season. But yeah, I think people forget that Andy Reid loves Shady and coached him for 6 years before he left, or for whichever one left first. So yeah, they're back together again, and they both have a lot of respect for each other. So
Well, when you can get Shady McCoy as more of a horizontal threat, basically have him touch the ball at any area of the field, I think that's kind of what makes him a dynamic player, and he just wasn't. There's no other threat than him in Buffalo. It was so easy just to stack up against him.
yeah, I had to chuckle as you were talking because I was looking at Adam's team, and he started Wayne Gallman.
I know. He still got 13 points. Literally, that's terrible. Oh, going back, like with Adam's team though, this is what I meant by like, if you're Adam though, seeing Ito Smith do well to me
Yeah.
is such a good, like, I think Ito Smith either next year or probably next year, I think he'll be a mid-tier wide receiver or running back too.
I mean, let's be clear here. It's not that Ito Smith did well. It's that Devontae Freeman did poorly, and Ito Smith still only had 6 carries for 31 yards.
I mean, that's a 5 yard per carry. That's pretty good. I mean, it's
I
not
get you.
amazing, but like he looked better from watching the game.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
looked good.
To your point, I would bet on Ito Smith doing better in the future.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, he might be a sell high candidate at some point in
He
a
could
couple
be.
games here.
He could be. I think right now a sell high candidate for Adam has to be Danny Amendola.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. He might be the best receiver in the league because he's on the lines.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because he's white. You racist.
No, I don't think he's so high. I don't think he's anything. I mean, he hit 27 points, but I don't think anyone's going to look at that and say, wow, he's. He did get a lot of targets.
13 targets.
There is some speculation that he could be the Golden Tate role in Detroit, which, I mean, that's why
That's
they
a
got him.
valuable role.
And Patricia knows him. Yeah, no, I get it. I think he's a this year guy, but I mean, I think he only has a 1 year contract.
He's a this year the guy, but there's still. I mean, like if you could ever get it to like if Danny Amendola did this for a couple more weeks,
Yeah.
I think you could reasonably get him for a second round pick.
If you need
if it meant competition and competing this year,
if you need a flex, I think he's your guy.
sure.
Or maybe a wide receiver 3.
Yeah,
As a competing
no, I
team.
agree. But I think a second round pick is okay for that. I mean, I don't think that's good enough to where like I think it's good enough to even get like a second round pick for depth in that position. Mm-hmm. So if anybody really wants to compete and they see that Danny Amendola continues to do well, I would. If you don't, I might consider.
Yeah, someone to target. Yeah. Deshaun Jackson had 40 points we talked about earlier. This is kind of just like the classic Deshaun Jackson game,
Yep.
but it is cool to see how fast he still is and how effective he still is at his
Yep.
age. Philip Lindsay had a pretty mad game last night, Monday Night Football. So, it's kind of like it's funny to see both Lindsay and Connor have mad games because they were the two stories at the start of last year. I'm really interested to see how the rest of this year starts.
Yeah, we'll see with Lindsey, dude. I think I remember saying Because I always thought, I was like, oh, they said they're going to be using Royce Freeman a lot more. You know, they like said that, and he also like put up decent stats last year. So I don't know. Well, I want to see really quick how Freeman did. From my remembrance, I think he did pretty well. So yeah, he had 10 carries for 56 yards and then 1 reception. I mean, that's pretty much split carries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of what I said going into it, that they were going to be at least 60-40, probably 50-50, like based on talent. And that's like one of the reasons back when he was being traded was one of the reasons I wasn't willing to give up a first-round draft pick for Lindsey. I understood that he was young. I understood his role, or the role that he had last year, but they weren't going to give up on Royce Freeman. He was a first or second round draft pick.
And there's always a healthy amount of skepticism whenever someone just comes off of the undrafted free agents pool and does well all of a sudden.
There is concern. I mean, I think he'll be fine. I just think Royce Freeman's going to cut a lot into his value.
Yeah.
And to me, that doesn't make him a wide receiver or worth a first round draft pick. I don't like guys that I think are going to be splitting carries.
Yeah,
personally.
I actually, for once, completely agree with you.
Yeah, for once. We did it.
We did it, Reddit. Okay, yeah. I don't think there's much else to see there for that matchup.
No, I think that kind of covers it from my end. Adam definitely has a rebuilding team, but he also has the best kicker in the league. So keep that in mind.
What the fuck? No, it's Justin Tucker.
I don't know. Is it?
No, I'm just.
No, it is Justin Tucker, but as of right now, it is Steven Gostkowski.
No, is the Chiefs kicker still Butker? Harrison Butker.
Oh wait, who has Steven Gostkowski? I thought Adam did.
Does he not?
Does he not?
I don't know. You told me. You were just
telling
me
somebody
he did.
Literally...
You just told me he had the best kicker.
I thought it said he did.
God, how are we going to expect people to want to come back and listen to this? He does have
Steven Gostkowski. He does have him. I don't know why I couldn't see him. I'm not wrong. I just couldn't find him.
Yeah, you're wrong.
But I just couldn't find him.
Yeah, they're the same.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's started. Yep. So, actually, I'm a little surprised that like 16 points was the highest point total for a kicker.
Yeah.
I'm actually normally you get 1 or 2 that get like in the 20 range.
Yeah, that is kind of surprising. There wasn't just you. Speaking of Tucker, you'd expect him with the blowout to have a good game, but he just had the extra points.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of what happens.
All right. Do you want to take the time to really quickly run through Matt's power rankings and say either up or down?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's just start at the bottom, and I just think go from there. Do you need me to list out who's the bottom team, or do you think you have a good idea?
That's Adam, and his previous rank was 12 before, and it's still 12.
Yeah, we're not going to send him down to 13.
But he scored more points than Obi.
He did? Oh, yeah. Are we going to... Obi's new 12? Okay, so obviously Adam's still there.
Yep.
Laramie at number 11.
His team looked decent. I mean, he won this week.
Yeah, he looked fine. I don't know. I think it's still a hold, in my opinion.
Oh, he lost. I'm sorry. My bad. Sorry,
yeah, he lost to the next guy up, which is Eric Barber.
Yeah. So they're both just holds because they both narrowly beat each other by only scoring 150 points?
Yeah, I kind of think so. I mean, especially just still analyzing teams. I think so, that they're just hold.
Maybe this is all just stupid because it's so early.
It could be. But I mean, but at the same time, there are a couple guys that I actually would change this list. For example, number 9.
Let's just talk about that.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But for example, number 9 is Marcus Skonieski. I think he moves up, especially after scoring this week over 200 points.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but is there a reason to believe that it's sustainable?
I'd put him over Ben Fowler.
Okay, that's fair.
Would you not?
I guess.
Especially with the Antonio Brown worrisome even more now.
Sure. For his team, you'd have to believe that you're encouraged by how well Jacobs did points wise, and you'd have to be encouraged on how good Cortland Sutton looked and Delaney Walker. So,
and that's interesting because I'm encouraged by all 3 of them.
Yeah,
I really am.
Those are kind of the highlights in my eyes, why you would move them up. So I get why you put his stock up.
And Ben Fowler's team, I guess, just maybe you don't. Maybe you also move Ben up with them too. I guess. I'm trying to think who we drop then, because somebody definitely dropped. Michael Reed drops.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not I don't know. I don't know how much I think Ted Ginn Jr. is going to get 20 points every single week.
No.
I know Adam Thielen I mean, 13 points isn't low for Adam Thielen, so that's fine. Deshaun Jackson's not going to get 41 points every game. So,
No.
there's plenty of areas here that I'd remove points from his team to make him a little bit worse. I think Saquon right at 19 is very reasonable every single week. Dak Prescott at 39 is very, very high. He'll probably get around 20. He'll be a good quarterback. So, I actually would move Skoniewski, I think, over
Mike?
Ben.
Oh, Ben.
Yeah,
And
I would.
Mike too, or?
That's a great question.
It's too hard to tell.
Yeah,
if it takes this long to think, it probably doesn't matter. Let's talk about Mags, because I think Mags at 6, where he has himself, I actually think that he probably should stay there. Even though, I actually think that basically the things we knew about his team are true, but his RB2 position is still scary.
Yep.
Or the lack thereof. And I think that's enough to keep him out of that top 5 teams, which I think the real question is, do you put Sam in the near tier 1 and then say that there's 5 tier 1 teams? Or does he just have a blow up week?
I think he had a blow up week personally. I mean, I think he has a very talented team. I guess from looking at it,
I mean, with Corey,
I don't put him there quite yet. I think he's very, very close. And I think if Carson can continue to show that he can go off, he's going to be great. But he definitely is close, especially for Delvin Cook. Delvin Cook is actually, I know I just said depending on how Chris Carson looks, but it really is depending on his running backs, right?
Yeah.
If Delvin Cook continues to be a top 5 running back, then yes, Sam is 100% in tier 1, debatably one of the best people in tier 1. But if Delvin Cook and Chris Carson are both RB2s, or even low, or say they're both high RB2s to me, then I don't put him in that category. He's just a little lacking on the star power because he would have Kelsey, Hopkins, Davis. You still got to be a little iffy on. Alshon Jeffrey to me is always. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey had 2 touchdowns that game and really not that many yards.
Yeah,
That's kind of scary. I mean, that's 12 points that are gone from his team. I mean, I'm not trying to speculate on touchdowns, saying they're not earned. Everybody gets those. Everybody has touchdowns that especially 2 times. But I read more into the DeAndre Hopkins 111 yards and 2 touchdowns more than I read into the Alshon Jeffrey 1 rush for 2-yard touchdown.
Yeah, for sure.
And the 49 yards and a touchdown type thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To me, that just the one makes more sense than the other.
You're articulating why I don't like 1 week playoffs. Moving on from that, I think there's reason to believe that Trujillo is still scary. I mean, Roethlisberger is clearly not luck and had a bad game. Julio had a reasonable game. I guess, I don't know.
Julio, it was fine towards the end there. Trujillo's team scares me. It scares me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even he did fine, but yeah, Big Ben doing Big Ben things. Eckler's not going to get 40 points a week though. I could imagine him more around 20. I think Hilton going off too was very surprising to me. Mm-hmm. The fact that he had 87 yards and 2 touchdowns surprises me a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how if he can keep that up with Jacoby Brisket, but I don't know.
Jacoby what?
Oh, Brisket. Sorry,
Nice.
I've gotten so used to calling him that
Cody
name.
just gave you a team name.
Yeah, just call him Jacoby Brisket, or just call him Cooking Out South.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I'm not worried about my team. I actually think I just had. I mean, the funny thing is I had the highest best ball score this week, so it's just I have plenty of depth and
Are
talent.
you going to start Brown next week?
No,
I hope he goes off again for you, and then I
Me
always
too.
nothing. Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about me. I don't think you change. And I actually was already worried about O'Brien to start the year, so I actually don't think he should be number 1. So I guess if we're going to break that down more, I actually do think O'Brien should probably be at least 2. I would put you back at number 1. Just because, yes, you don't have depth really either. But I think that we already touched on this, that a lot of Obi's players are just super hit or miss. Mm-hmm. In the sense that they're all kind of flukes last year.
Yeah.
And they've got, not flukes, but they all have risk. They all have a low floor compared to a lot of other players.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
what
have to
I'll say.
see how it goes. I mean, if John Brown can continue to be not this good, obviously I know he won't be this good, but if he can be a guy that gives me a reliable 10 or 11 points, I mean, that would be essentially be my 5th wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously I'm going to start Golden Tate when he gets back. And I
Yep.
think I personally like Golden Tate in that Giants offense a lot, mostly because I don't trust Eli Manning or Daniel Jones to really throw it far. I
Yep.
trust them more on dump passes to Golden Tate. So maybe that's not how it works, but we'll see. There's still a lot to be determined.
It'll be interesting to see if Obi gets and he will get a lot more help just from having Green back as well.
Yeah, he will.
So
He absolutely will.
I don't know. I think this is all just kind of silly to talk about because we won't really even be able to say this until we have another data point, which will be next week.
Yep.
Probably won't even be able to say anything until we have a third data point
Normally after 3 weeks is kind of when you can start seeing
or
trends
the
a
first
little
quarter
bit.
of the season.
Pretty much. I mean,
So-
obviously, whenever you play only 12 weeks, I mean, it's going to be tough to kind of judge everybody on a full name basis. That's just the NFL. But at the same time, I think it's good to draw parallels from games and see how you saw a player perform or what they looked like, because I think that is very indicative of the way that they might perform in future games.
For sure. Well, we're running on an hour and 20 minutes on this podcast, so. So, do you have anything else interesting to say?
No, I've said all my interesting things I could possibly think of. I guess it would just be thanks, people, if you're still listening, for sticking with
Jesus
us on
Christ.
this long one. I mean, we had a lot of things to cover. We didn't do a preseason beforehand, so I think we kind of threw that in there. A lot of like some little introductions, but I'd say just let us know what you think. Comment on either wherever we post this to, whether it's on Sleeper or the fantasy page, or
We probably should have made this a two-parter.
yeah, we probably should have, but
It's not too late.
always
Maybe
too
I'll
late.
make it a two-parter, just
Yeah.
for optics.
you can do that. I mean, it's up to you. If nothing else, I think people are working. They need something to listen to at work.
For an hour and a half.
Maybe
Who wants to listen to us, period?
Oh, that's a good point. Probably not me. That is a long time.
But anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. This was the Delt Champlain Dynasty.
We'll be coming up with a new name for that. That is not going to be our name.
All right, everyone. See ya.